All right, y'all, what's going on, man? So another domino has fallen in the college ranks. Mark Stoops, all-time winningest coach in Kentucky football history, is expected to be fired tomorrow. Obviously, major news in the sport. And when we think about it, coming in, so many openings for SEC jobs. 5 was filled today. Lane Kiffin to LSU. Some are all, obviously, to Florida. Silverfield, obviously, to Arkansas. Golish to Auburn. And obviously, Ole Miss moved fast. And obviously, they filled their hiring with Pete Golding. So, teams are moving on and obviously in new directions. Now, obviously, I think this was warranted. He spent about 13 seasons with the program, over 70-plus wins, accomplished everything obviously he could. But this season was disappointing. Yes, they had some nice moments. They had Texas on the ropes, could have beat them. But when you get thraxed at home, or not at home, when you get thraxed by your rival, Louisville, by nearly 40-plus points, that's pretty much the nail in the coffin. And what is one of the saddest parts about Kentucky, especially here in the last probably 4 to 5 years, they have not figured out that quarterback position. They've really struggled there. And while they've had, decent to good defenses, they've never just had that explosive, like, passing attack, or they've never had that just dominant offense that can kind of, go hand in hand with the defense. Not saying defense has been elite, but they have been competent, in years under obviously Stoops. But the offense hasn't always been there. One of your prized possessions was Zach Calzada. That never really worked out at the QB position. You've had to go to other quarterbacks, right? So it's unfortunate, but obviously it's time. Got to move on from Mark Stoops. Good coach. He's going to land on his feet somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Whether that's being the head coach somewhere or that's being a coordinator somewhere. He is a good man, good coach. But like I said, sometimes it gets stale, you know what I'm saying? And they give him, like I said, 13 plus years to figure it out, man. So unfortunate for Mark Stoops. Tough year for Kentucky. And obviously when I say tough year, they felt it was such a tough year that they decided to move on. Look, $37 million per his contract, his payout, which is going to be paid out within the next 60 days. That's a lot of money to pay Mark Stoops. And that is a hefty ticket. So tough spot to be in, obviously, for Kentucky. We'll see what happens next. We'll see who they're going to bring in. They're going to need a probably big hire. And now for so many jobs being filled, and less of those top head coaching candidates being available, who will they get to obviously fill these seats, fill these spots? It's going to be very intriguing to say the least, and see who's going to be obviously the next target. But I want to highlight my Kentucky fans. Y'all comment down below. How would you rate the era of Mark Stoops? Would you rate it successful, unsuccessful, or mediocre? How would you rate the era of Mark Stoops? And what is the next coach that you want to come into your program? As I said, when you have a tough SEC and you got name brand coaches like a Kirby Smart, right? You throw Lane Kiffin in there as well as a pretty notable coach in the SEC. Steve Sarkisian is another really good coach in the SEC. Who do you get to go up against those guys and be able to be successful early on? How do you manage this recruiting? How do you manage this transfer portal? A lot of questions to be asked. But Kentucky said, we're not waiting no longer. We're moving on from our coach. There it is, man. That's my reaction, man. Stay tuned. I will continue to have updates all throughout the process. The transfer portal, obviously, big names that I see that enter it, and obviously any head coaching firings or hirings as well.